Welcome back. As I mentioned, we have our Director Spotlight with Kurt Weimann. Well, welcome. Nice to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we know you're a very busy job, and maintaining all of our landscaping, so water and trees and grass and everything that's involved in the village. But before we get into all of the details of your position, just tell me a little bit about yourself, how long you've been here, and then maybe what your background was.
Sure. I've been here actually 5 years last week.
Oh, wow. Okay. Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Before that, I've spent 34 years in the public environment, working mostly in public works departments, doing everything from maintenance to construction.
Okay.
And some administration work, too.
Okay. So was that something that you had always wanted to get into? I mean, are you a horticulturist, or what's your education?
My education is actually administrative.
Okay.
I have a degree from UCI in business management.
Oh, okay.
But my passion is public service. I've been in public service my entire life.
Right.
I work for a charity on my off time. It's just kind of what I do. I like being there for people and helping people and making their lives better. Well,
and you certainly have your work cut out for you here in the village, because there's so much land and greenery, and everything looks so beautiful. And then we had been talking about how many different kinds of trees there are too. But of course, all of that needs water. And here we are looking at a terrible drought that's coming up. What are some of the challenges that you're going to deal with?
A lot of challenges we have. Unfortunately, this community, as gorgeous as it is, was planted years ago without any knowledge that there would be a drought coming. Mm-hmm. That wasn't even in anybody's mind. So the landscaping here was not designed for a drought environment. Mm-hmm. It's very lush. As you look around us, the picture behind you is so very lush here, and there's a lot of grass.
Right.
And grass consumes a lot of water. So we're all going to have to start rethinking what our landscaping looks like. Mm-hmm. It can still look green, it can still look beautiful, it just can't be what it is now. We have a lot of tropical things here that just aren't going to survive in a drought.
Right, exactly. And you have been making modifications along the way where you can. I mean, I know many people who change out their grass to more of not so much a desert look, because that looks a little bland, but more along drought-tolerant plants, which can be beautiful.
It actually can. We did a pilot project up in Gate 14 off of Calle Oeste a couple of years ago. It's 60,000 square feet, where we took out grass that wasn't really being used. It's what we call non-functional turf. No one walks on it, no one plays on it. And we made it into a park with all native type, water-saving type plant material. We put in some GG walkways, some benches in the shade, and it's actually getting used. You can't go by there almost any time of the day and not see someone sitting out on one of those benches. So
that's nice.
It's not only are we saving water, but we're making better use of the land that we have. We maintain in landscaping over 650 acres of irrigated landscape.
Wow.
And most of it isn't used. Most of it is just looked at.
Yeah.
So if we're going to just look at it, there's no sense having turf. Especially with the amount of water that it takes.
Exactly.
So both United and Third Board have dedicated themselves to the drought, to changing the way we landscaping. It's an expensive process. We have some money in the budget this year, and we have some more money in the budget next year for doing these change outs of getting rid of the turf and replacing it with just as eye-pleasing, just as aesthetically pleasing, but not necessarily the tropical look you have here now. Okay,
so what are some ideas that you guys have that you'll be looking at? I mean, I'm assuming you have different concepts.
Yes, we do. We are actually going to do, coming up, another pilot project in United this time. I brought the location to the United Board yesterday. We'll be bringing on a landscape architect that specializes in drought-tolerant plantings, and she will be doing some renderings for us for the committee to approve, and we'll move forward from there. And Third is taking the same tact next year. Both, those who don't know, both boards have directed me to reduce our irrigation water usage by 15%.
Right.
So El Toro Water District has asked us voluntarily to reduce water use overall by 15%. So we're doing our half in irrigation, and I think residents need to do their half too in reducing their water use.
Now, some of the areas are recyclable water, right?
Yes, most of Third, everything, excuse me, between Santa Maria and El Toro Road is recycled water for irrigation.
Okay, now do you have to cut back on that as well or not?
We don't have to, but we are. In Third, excuse me, in Third we are, to sort of an equitable thing and a financial thing. It's, as some people have potable water for their grass and some people have recycled, what we're trying to do is be fair. Why would some people get green grass and others not so green?
Gotcha.
Cutting the water by 15% isn't going to have a big effect on the turf.
Right.
It's going to go a little dormant. It's going to look a little brown, but we don't expect it to die.
Right.
We expect it to jump back as the months cool a little bit. We expect it to come back and look a little better.
Right.
So we're being equitable. We're reducing it all across the board. And there's a significant financial savings to that, to the mutuals.
Right.
So the mutuals are going to take their financial savings from reducing the water and use those funds to reduce the turf. So it's a win-win across the board.
Now, I've heard over and over again that we have so many different kinds of trees, and that's, you know, like they've been planted so long ago. That must be a huge task.
Yes, it is. We have over 38,000 trees here in the community, and I know Ross Moore had this dream of 250 different varieties of trees. We have about 226 different varieties of trees here now. Unfortunately, there aren't 226 species of trees that are adapted to a drought, high heat, low water use environment. So the United Landscape Committee yesterday just voted to move forward with it, and it goes before the Third Landscape Committee next month, is a long-term urban management plan that we're bringing, urban forest management plan that we're going to bring in that will take into account what we have as a tree stock, what we have as a current environmental conditions, and sort of give us a roadmap down the road on what we need to do to maintain the urban forest here in Laguna Woods Village.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, trees die, that becomes a fire hazard. And if we aren't able to water them as appropriately, then of course you've got a different problem on your hands.
Yes, we are keeping a close eye. I've got 6 arborists on board, and they all are tasked with keeping an eye on the trees. As they're out and about in the village, they're watching the trees for signs of what we call shock. So trees and shrubs will go into a sort of a shock phase where they're, they don't have a brain, but they're like, oh my God, what's happening? Why aren't I getting the nutrients I normally get? And they will start to discolor. So we're keeping an eye on that. And the ones that do start to go into shock, we will install tree rings on. It's a process. It will take several months before the trees actually go into shock, because most of the trees are deep rooted, so it'll take a little while for the reduction in the water to affect them.
Right.
But once we do see the effect, our goal is to keep them all alive as much as we can. So we will divert some of the water that is going to the turf to save the trees.
Now, how does the water shortage, and if this is something that you manage as well, affect the golf course?
Golf course is recycled water.
Okay.
So they don't have to worry about the amount of water that they get. So we have no plans to cut back on the water to the golf course.
Okay, and then you manage the trees that surround or are on the golf course?
No, the golf course is completely managed by recreation.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so that's an area you don't need to worry about.
No.
Okay, well,
I
thank
have
goodness,
enough,
right?
thank you.
Phew. Is there anything in particular that you would like to let our residents know about, other than the things that you've already mentioned, in regards to our landscaping?
Oh, there's so much. I could go on for days. If you're interested in what goes on in landscape, attend the landscape meetings. We try to make them as informative as possible. We do use them as a method to get messages out to residents. They're all televised. You can get them on Granicus online.
Right.
And we have some very good discussions in them. We're looking at different ways to save water is our big ones, different ways to clean up the landscaping that is out there.
Right.
Both boards just, we started a new crew last year that specializes in just replanting, and both boards have approved that crew for another year, so you will see more revitalization. We're going to go through and take out a lot of these older plants that do require a lot of water,
Right.
and start planting in more water-wise plants.
Right, and I know you mentioned that you would like the residents to do their part, and we'll be talking a lot about this, I'm sure, going forward with the water companies and other folks who are more interested in water conservation. We've talked to the water company many times about what people can do to reduce water usage. Any thoughts?
Well, as far as landscaping goes, is we are encouraging residents to not water. There's a tendency to, when you're got a slow afternoon, it's very meditative to go out and water, but we're asking residents to not do that because
Right.
we are intentionally cutting back the irrigation on the plantings, and it doesn't do us any good if you're going to go out and water it yourself.
Oh.
That doesn't accomplish it. So we're also looking at, both boards are looking at restrictions on using hoses to stay in line with the current state mandates. So if you want to water plants, people, I've heard Donna from the Water Conservation Committee talk about this many times. When you're running your water to get the hot water, fill up a watering jug with it and go water with that.
Point.
That's a great idea. That's a great way you can help the landscaping and help the drought too.
Exactly. Well, I know we all, look at our plants on our patios and we say, oh my gosh, they need to be, fed, but thank goodness the heat isn't here yet. So we've been lucky enough where we haven't had to water more than probably once a week.
Yes, and most plants don't require more than once or twice a week. If they are adapted to our environment, you should focus on planting plants that can get by with less water. They're just as
Right.
beautiful.
Right.
And so they can generally get by if they're in the shade once a week, if they're out in the sun twice a week, and they will survive.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for the information. I appreciate it. And
Sure.
Good job out there. Everything's looking pretty darn good.
Thank you.
All right. If you have any questions about landscaping services or the meetings or maybe volunteering, you can always send an email to generalmanager@vmsinc.org and we will make sure that it gets to the appropriate person. We'll be right back.